So this video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be about how I prepare or plan when I'm doing a project. And the project I'm up to right now is the bench-crafted split-top Rubo. Most of these tips that I'm going to give you can actually be applied to almost every single project. The first thought or consideration in doing this split-top Rubo bench is what kind of wood to use. Typically, over the last few hundred years, as people have built woodworking benches, they tend to use hardwoods that are inherent in the area where they're actually located. So what's easily or readily available in your area is typically what drives the type of wood to use for a bench. Now, that wood might be beech, it might be ash or birch or hard maple, soft maple. Here in southwestern Ontario, it's relatively easy to get maple, and this stack of lumber right here is soft maple. Now, I chose soft maple because of a few things. It's extremely hard. Now, it is a little bit softer than hard maple, and down the road, if I ever need to flatten the top of my bench, it'll be easier to hand plane the soft maple than the hard maple. The other factor is cost. Soft maple here in southwestern Ontario is slightly less expensive than hard maple. So factor that into some of your projects when you build them. You might be thinking, there's a lot of lumber here. I'm not going to need all of this to build a split top Rubo bench. And you're absolutely correct. The bench crafted plans say that you're going to need about 150 board feet of lumber. They recommend that you buy 200 board feet so that you have enough to account for waste or any boards that you might not be able to use for the piece you need to make. Now, when I went to the sawmill to buy the lumber, what ended up happening is there was quite a large discount when you purchased 250 board feet. When I worked out the numbers, it wasn't much more money to get that extra 50 board feet. It was probably about another $50, maybe $70, right in that zone. So I ended up buying 250 board feet. So when you're trying to buy lumber for a project, maybe think ahead a little bit. Is there another project that's coming up that if you buy more lumber, are you going to get a discount on the actual lumber you're buying now? And is that going to be a good cost savings? Maybe you have or don't have any space to store it in your shop or close by to your shop. I actually do. In my basement, I've got some extra room beside my shop where I am right here. This is actually my weightlifting room, but on the other side of it is where I've got some lumber stored here. Definitely pick up extra if you can, if the cost makes sense. When I first began woodworking, I was kind of intimidated about going to the sawmill and asking questions. I didn't want them to think that I have no idea what I'm talking about. And back then, I really had no idea what I was talking about. But what you need to realize is most of the people that work at the sawmills are very nice and very helpful. You can talk to them and ask questions, and they'll get you through it. So don't be afraid to ask questions when you go to the sawmill to purchase your lumber. I learned that they don't charge any extra for giving you all 8-foot boards. The bench crafted plans work out beautifully for 8-foot long boards. I actually drew everything onto this one piece of paper for the split top Rubo. And all it is 8-foot boards of certain widths, and I just drew all the pieces on it. And by doing that, what you can actually accomplish is now you know how many boards you're going to need. You'll be able to tell the sawmill X amount of boards or X amount of board feet. Okay, and you'll be able to plan the least amount of waste out of your project, leaving you with the maximum number of boards left over if you have extra. So cut lists, very, very important, makes things go a lot smoother. Where they do charge you extra is in the width of the board. If you want them sorted to all be the same width, that takes them time to go through the stack and find those boards and to put them on a skid for you. So just ask for random width boards. They said, Gary, we're not going to give you 2-inch boards and 3-inch boards. So, if you need stuff that's 4 and 5 inches wide, that's about the narrowest that we're ever going to give you. So you might get something ranging from a 4-inch wide board up to probably about a 10-inch wide board, they said, or something in that kind of zone. It just kind of depends what plank they've got from the tree and what ends up on your stack. So don't worry about getting really, really narrow strips. It's not going to happen. The grade of that lumber is going to be different than what you're going to buy for your project. Another key tip I can give you when building a workbench is consider the boards that you're going to use for the top of the bench, because rest assured down the road at some point you're probably going to need to reflatten the bench or plane the top off to get a nice flat smooth work surface again. And if you consider which boards are going to be best for that in the beginning, you'll make your life easier down the road when you actually need to plane the surface of your bench. Let me explain that a little bit further. Here's one of the boards I've selected for the top of the bench. Now this would be the left end of it, the right end of it, and the top and bottom as if you were standing in front working at the bench. And the reason I've selected it for one of the boards for the top is because of the grain direction. You can see the grain direction is running uphill from right to left, okay, like so. And it actually runs like that all the way from this end all the way to the far left end of the board. So down the road, if you're ever going to need to hand plane this particular board to reflatten your top or to remove nicks and gouges on the top of your workbench, you'll be able to do it very easily if you have all the grain running uphill to your left, if you are a right-handed woodworker like myself. So I've taken all those boards out of the stack and put them into a stack for just the top of the bench. All the other pieces can come from any one of the other planks in the stack. One thing I wish I had learned a lot sooner in my furniture building is to let boards acclimate to your shop or your garage or wherever you're going to be building before you actually start to do the builds. Now, what I mean by that is every board has a certain moisture content to it. It's going to be different at the sawmill or at the store compared to at your house or in your shop. And one way you can monitor that is by purchasing a moisture meter. This one works very simple. You just jam these two pins at the end of the meter into the end of the end grain on a board and turn the dial on, and a light turns off as soon as you've reached the moisture content of the board, and you can read it from the scale on the actual meter itself. There's lots of different ones available. You can get some that are digital and they work a lot easier than this. You don't have to jam the pins into a board, but I've had this one for a really long time and it's never failed me yet, and it'll probably be the only one I ever have for the rest of my life. Now there's varying opinions on how long to let those boards acclimate in your shop before you actually go start cutting and using them. Some people say a week, maybe 2 weeks. Some people even say a month. I find I wait probably at least 3 or 4 weeks. So let's just call it a month. I find after that amount of time, typically the boards, if they were kiln dried, they're going to be at an equilibrium state by about the 1 month point, and you can safely and more confidently go and start using those boards for your project. I also learned over the years to put a dehumidifier in my basement where my shop is. It runs 24/7, 365 days a year. I never have to drain it because I just ran the hose right into a floor drain, the same one that the furnace operates on. So by having that running all the time, you can eliminate some of that musty smell in your basement or in the shop, and you can also have a lot more confidence and consistency in the moisture content of all the boards in your shop. Actually, building a project can be very overwhelming for a lot of people because there's so many pieces in some projects anyways. So what I find helpful to keep things organized is to break the project up into manageable segments or chunks. With my bench build, I'm going to split it up into doing just the base and the tops, the dovetails along the front apron, and each of the 2 vise installations, and then some miscellaneous parts for the build. So splitting it up into more manageable chunks I have found very helpful over the years, so give it a try. Along a similar line to that, one thing I like to do is write down the steps or the order in which I want to actually work on the project build, so that if I have a week in between shop sessions or longer or whatever, I don't forget where I left off. I've got everything written down in the order that I want to do it, and I can kind of check them off at the end of the day when I'm done working in the shop, so that when I come back, I can just start right where I left off the last time, and I don't get confused as to, oh geez, where do I even start again? I kind of forget. It really kind of speeds things up so you're not wasting 10 or 15 minutes trying to overview where you're at when you come back to the project after you've taken a bit of a break from it. My last planning tip could very well be the most important one. It's stop planning and just go and build something, because it's easy to get hung up on details or making mistakes or how do I do something, and it's more important to go and make those mistakes, wreck some boards, destroy some boards, and actually just have some fun and build something, create something. it'll be very rewarding. You'll learn lots along the way. Even the most experienced woodworkers make mistakes. I've been doing this for 15 plus years, and yeah, even I still make mistakes. It's just part of the craft. So go build something, have some fun, and yeah, make some sawdust.